In this video, I'll be discussing 10 steps that I've implemented and that the Lord showed me on how to lead and correct as a man of God with your wife, and also how to be a humble representative of God's love and God's direction in your family, so that you can go forward in wisdom and in truth. Step 1. Calling out, informing, and discussing what you know to be wrong so that it can be made right. When you're with your spouse or you're speaking with her, or an action that she does or something she says or a thought that she lets out that she didn't hold captive or something of that regard, when you see something that the Lord has helped you remove from yourself, or a habit that He's given you the wisdom to understand or the revelation to see, you got to call these things out. If you see your wife do something that you know is not to be holy or not to be wise or anything in that regard, step 1 is to call it out. After you do that, hey, don't say that. Why did you just say that? Hey, what you just said, do not say that. Now you move on to the informed step of, okay, this is why. Don't say that because of blank, 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 and blank. Because, and you see when you do that, then it does this, right? And so then you're informing, we don't do that because God says this, God says that. This is what I used to do it too, but I don't anymore. Then you go on to the discussion where now, your wife has humbly received the correction. And I've had it happen many times with my wife where she's so grateful to know, because as God says, like, fools hate wisdom, but a wise man receives it joyfully. A wise man loves rebukes and loves being corrected, because it's going to help you be better for the Lord. Like, that's an awesome thing. And so when you have a holy wife, she will love it as well. And you guys will be able to have that moment where it's like, golly, I can't believe I just did that. Hey, honey, I know it's okay, but hey, just going forward, let's change the way we think about that, and let's not do that anymore going forward. Let's cut that habit out, or let's be more conscious of it, and over time, you'll nail that, and we won't even have these discussions anymore. And it's awesome. It's awesome. So call out, inform, and then discuss in hindsight, and kind of go over why and what and how come. And it's beautiful. Have that resolution and kind of go back on the film of that situation. And also hold these things captive when they come. When you have a moment like that where you can teach your wife, or even a moment where you can be taught, don't let them go so quick. Hold on to them, chew them, digest them, break them down, go over and pull all the knowledge that you can out of that situation, so that you can remember and that you can apply and really get the most out of that lesson that you were just given by God through somebody's mistake or failure. But God always turns what the enemy intends as a curse into a blessing. So you can really make that situation that might have been tough or might have been gentle a beautiful one regardless. Step number 2, alter your approach according to the situational climate, whether it be a sharp rebuke or a gentle correction. Let wisdom guide you. Not every situation is going to warrant the same response. You want to be wise in the way that you attack and the way that you approach a situation. There will be times where something, as Jesus said to Peter, the Son of Man will be taken and will be crucified and will be tortured. And I'm not going to let the Son of Man do it. We can't let that happen to you. He says, get behind me, Satan, for you're thinking in humans' perspective and not God's perspective, right? That's a pretty sharp rebuke. That's pretty intense. But when something such as that reveals itself, that calls for a sharp rebuke. There's a time and a place for everything, as Solomon says. But in that regard, there also is a time to be gentle. Hey, honey, hey, look, I just want to let you know, like, you said something like that, and hey, honey, like, come on, like, let's not do that. That's not wise. That's not right. I know you had a good intention behind it. I know but hey, honey, look, God has revealed to me that that's not something we should do. The Holy Spirit, I feel led to tell you. And yeah, but then there's also a time of like, honey, don't say that again. That is not holy. That was not right. Like, what you just said, that hurt. Like, that was not something that I'm fond of. And quite frankly, that was not holy at all. Like, that was demonic. Like, that you shouldn't have let that thought slide. You should have held that captive and, not let the enemy speak through you or use you against me. And that's the weakness, Adam and Eve. That's the Adam and Eve, syndrome. And so you need to be a man, the man that Adam wasn't, and to be able to put things down and stop things before the enemy, sneakily and deceivingly uses your wife to say some things or do some things and to try to usurp you or offend you or just kind of put you down unknowingly. And I say these things unknowingly because if you have a holy woman of God, a holy wife, she's not intentionally doing any of these things, and we aren't intentionally falling short or being a bad leader as well. It's just our nature. We're in a fallen state, and it's going to happen. So just keep that in mind. Step number 3, overcome temporary discomfort for strong longevity. Don't delay in doubt. When you know that you have been led to say something, you'll feel that he communicates in a very gentle way at times with these things, where you'll kind of feel what the world likes to call this gut feeling, but you'll feel the Holy Spirit encouraging you, and hey, you should say something. That that not to be right. Say something. But don't let doubt, I don't want to offend her. I don't want to hurt her feelings. We're having a great time right now, but just let it slide. You'll say it later. No, you'll forget. You'll delay in doubt because you doubt what you're being given. You'll doubt that the Lord's telling you to do something. And when you do that, it's just like a dream. If you don't write it down or you don't jot it down as soon as you wake up, I'll remember it later. You'll forget it. So if you don't correct in the moment, not only will you potentially forget to correct it in the future, you're also letting that habit, seat itself deeper in your spouse by not nipping it at the bud, but letting that weed grow and choke out other beautiful things about your wife or about your relationship as a whole, because you two have become one. So it will come back to bite you if you don't, put it in its place in the moment. So that's why it's like, screw the discomfort. You're a leader. You're not supposed to be buddy or a gay best friend with your wife. You're supposed to be a leader, and there's going to come with times where you're not going to be the most friendly or most accepting person. You're going to have to deny some things sometimes. But if you always do it lovingly and you always let the Lord guide you and lead you, and you have a wife that loves God, she will understand, and nothing will be misinterpreted or misconstrued in the long run, and she'll understand. And so you just need to be faithful in applying the thing that God is giving for you to act on. So don't let that slide, and don't let doubt stop you from overcoming that temporary discomfort. Number 4, being the shepherd means protecting the flock regardless of the herd's desires. This ties into the previous point of what you know to be true, what you know to be right, you need to stick to regardless. You have been given a responsibility, and you're not supposed to be, like I said, everybody's friend 24/7. You're a spouse, that's your best friend, and I'm talking with children as well, but you need to stick to Torah. You need to stick to the Word of God. You need to stick to the discipline of obeying God, regardless of what your wife or, God willing, your future children, or if you have children, your children's desires, no matter how enticing or how good they sound in the moment. What you know to be true, stick to. Do not move. You have a job and a responsibility. The wolf, the enemy, will come to pick off your flock, but you need to remain focused and steadfast, and you need to have a backbone on which I say is the Word of God, on the knowledge, wisdom, discernment, and understanding the Lord has given you, and to not depart from those things, but always remain faithful to them, regardless of the reaction that you'll get from your spouse or your children. It's more honorable. Obviously, it's obedient, and that is the highest, most important part of this, is to be obedient to God regardless of the sheep. Regardless if this sheep wants to wander there and this one wants to go into the dark and wander into the forest, sometimes you got to be stern, and you got to be a shepherd. You got to be a guard dog, a herd dog, and you got to wrangle them back in at whatever expense, whether their feelings are hurt or their desires that aren't holy are crushed. It doesn't matter. You have a job, and ultimately when you stand before the Lord and when God sees it, he's going to hold you responsible. You're responsible. And so you got to be faithful to the job God has given you over everything, because it is He that you should love most and seek to approve or seek to please, and you should be seeking His approval more than that of your wife. But the more that you two are in tune with each other and in tune with the Lord, more specifically in your triune covenant as one, you guys will do this naturally. You guys will be on the same page, and your guys' desires will be aligned, and that's what you hope for. And over time in your marriage, as your years go on, that'll be more and more true. Step 5, listen, digest, and discern, but move forward with faith in God's guidance. I'll say this: feelings matter, but feelings should not drive, right? Let the feelings sit in a seat in your vehicle, but don't let them drive the vehicle. Your wife, she might have things that she needs to get off her chest. She might feel a certain way. She might want to express something or say something. Listen, damn it. Listen. Let your wife speak her mind. Let her say some things. And let her convey what she's feeling. Let her convey how she is seeing this, or how this thing has moved her, or whatever. Listen. And as you listen, digest. Let her be there. You need to be a shoulder for her to lean on, to cry on. You need to be an ear for her to speak to. You need to be there to be that for your wife. Now, as you listen, digest, chew on it, think on some things. Don't be so quick and so emotional in your responses, so fast, just to give an answer, just to sound wise, just to, hear yourself talk. Digest. Ask even more questions. Ask some whys, and how come, and ask those to help her explore her feelings deeper, so that she can either understand that maybe it's not a valid feeling, or to help her be like, hey, no, like, I want you to continue to feel that. I love that. And you want to help her explore herself, and you want to help her explore her feelings and her mind, so that you can help her have a barometer for what is holy and what is, aligned with more of her nature, her fallen nature as a woman, with just, over sensationalized feelings or desires that might go contrary to the, lead of a man, or as the union as a whole. So just listen, digest, and discern, and trust that God will guide you if you just take your time in those steps, so that you can discern those things properly and give her the response that she needs and the plan that you both need going forward. Similar to when Solomon had 2 women coming to his temple, and there was a dead baby and a live baby, and Solomon in his wisdom, though they were claiming, one switched my baby at night, that's mine, no, it's mine, and yours the dead one, no, mine's the... He said, okay, well, let's do this. Take the living baby, cut it in half, and we'll give a half to each of you. At which one woman goes, no, please. She can have the baby. It's all hers. It's fine. Then he says, that's the mother. Give the child to her. The other woman's a liar. And boom, settled it. Wow. I believe it even says something along, like, the people were amazed at the wisdom of Solomon, because Solomon asked God for wisdom. So ask God for wisdom. Be constantly in contact with Him during these things. As you're listening to your wife, asking the Lord for wisdom as you're listening and leaning on Him, waiting for Him to lead you, and just trusting, having faith. Faith is so important. Just trust that the Lord will guide you and lead you in His living, ever evolving and changing wisdom. Number 6, forgive sincerely and move always forward, never backwards. After these things happen, even if it was somewhat of an egregious act towards you, forgive sincerely, even if it was something stupid and small. My hope every time that I encounter a situation like this where I need to correct my wife, I want it to be an awesome ending, if possible. And to this point it has, where it's like, I want us to both leave smiling. I want us to laugh about this at the end. Like, honey, I forgive you. Like, it's a big deal, but it's not at the same time. I forgive you already. I love you. I know you got good intentions, honey. I know you love the Lord. I know you love me. This is going to happen. We're going to make mistakes, but you're giving me the opportunity to get better. When you make a mistake, it's actually for the benefit of us in the end, because now I get to correct. I get to learn how to do this better. I get to learn how to approach it properly, do better than what I did last time. and and grow as a man myself, grow as a leader myself, grow as someone that needs to properly break things down as like the family judge. So it's wonderful, and that's why when you forgive sincerely and you move forward, you don't dwell on these things. You don't drag people through their shame or the mud again. You don't bring these things up as well in a shameful way if you ever do, but you move forward and you let that person, your wife, know that you already passed it. It's just like God, when we fall off the path for a second, slip, fall, sin, do something stupid, He's just waiting to keep moving forward. He wants to see us humble ourselves, but He wants to see us get up and get back on the path and get back with action. Teshuvah, repentance, turn back around, get back on the path, and let's keep doing this thing, right? A righteous man falleth 6 times, gets up 7. Get back up and go. Action, 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 action. So when your wife that has maybe gone against you or said something foolish or whatever, when she sees you lovingly forgive her and be willing to pardon that and to, wipe that debt or that sin away, just as Yeshua has wiped away our sin and made us look blameless to the Lord, as clean and as white as a linen, as a snow. That is how you need to be with your wife. And God says, if you don't forgive, don't expect to be forgiven. So you let your wife and her shortcomings and her faults and things done against you in foolishness be an opportunity for you to become better and better at forgiving each and every time. Number 7, your wife and every child to follow should increase your fear of God because you have been given the responsibility and the consequences of leading. When God gave me my wife and when we were married, when we became married, and even prior, I could see how it was increasing my fear of God because I am being given a responsibility. God is giving me a gift, which is more precious than rubies. When God says you find a wife, you find a good thing. God has given me a good thing. It is a gift. And now I am in charge of maintaining and of cultivating and growing and returning her back to Him. Whenever God calls us back home, I need to bring her to God better than she was when she was given to me. And I need to be a farmer. I need to be I need to farm her, and I need to make her soil fertile, and I need to bring fruit out of her, and I need to work on her and love her and form her, and be a great lead, a great mentor, a great lover, a great husband, a great friend, a great brother in the Lord. And also, there are consequences to this if you don't do them properly. If it's not just, you're not alone anymore to where when you sin against God or you hurt yourself, you just hurt you and that's it. Now, I will be affecting someone else. There is someone else's blood that will be on my hands if I don't do the job properly. And that should put the fear of the Lord in you even a little more than what you already have. And it's beautiful, and I'm glad that it does, because it makes me realize how serious of a job this is, how serious of a job I have, and how important these things are, and that they do matter. And if you don't have if you don't fear the Lord more when He gives you something like a wife, and especially a child, that thing is going to be completely unable to do anything on its own, where it will be quite literally fully dependent on you. It should scare you to death. It should make you realize that God is just worth fearing and worth respecting and worth loving so much that you want to love and nurture everything that He gives you and return it back to Him tenfold. It's just like with the 3 servants that were given talents. I don't want God to come back. I don't want God to call me back or my life to end and my wife be the same as she was when I got her. I want to be the servant that took those talents and multiplied them and brought back tons of fruit from them. That's how I want to be with my wife. And you should have that fear of God to inspire you and push you to be a benefit to them and to lift them up and to make them better over the course of your life. And that, for me, puts a fear of God in my heart, because I know that there are consequences that come with not doing the job right. And just like in that parable with the talents, the master was incredibly angry. at that servant that just buried the 1 talent and didn't do anything with it because he thought his master was a harsh master. So let the fear of the Lord motivate you to cultivate and to grow your wife and, God willing, your children, or if you even have them, in a direction that edifies the body of Yeshua and that ultimately benefits the world by being a benefit to the kingdom of God, right? Number 8, allowing God to use your loved ones to inspire, teach, and improve yourself. So always remain humble. Although you're the leader, you're not always gonna know the best right thing all the time in a moment. You need to be humble enough to know that God has given you an equal, your wife, equal in the eyes of God, and children that also possess the Spirit of the Lord, where God can use any of them to teach you, to humble you, to inform you, to correct you, to inspire you, motivate you, move you. So don't think just because you're the head or just because you're the king or whatever of your family that nothing has anybody, or that that nobody in your family has anything to contribute. You need to be humble. Don't become a tyrant. Like Jesus says, like the world calls leaders to guide them and to lead them that become tyrants, right? You don't want to be a tyrant. You want to be humble. And so don't let this superiority complex or just the role that God has given you get to your head. Always be willing to learn. Always be willing to take into consideration, just like we spoke about in step 5, listen, digest, and discern. Let your family contribute to your leadership. As a private first class in the United States Army, I'm out on a deployment, and I have an NCOIC, a non-commissioned officer in control or in charge, and she's a sergeant. And there's many times where she knows far better than I. She earned this rank. She's taken her due diligence to work her way up the totem pole and earn this job of being a non-commissioned officer, of being in charge, of having the responsibility of leading a team. But there are times where she doesn't know everything right, and where she needs to then be willing to receive the perspective that the rest of her team has, because we're at the boot level. So it's like, if you want to be a great boss or a great owner or a leader, you need to also let those that are experiencing your leadership give you critique and things to help better that, and also offer their unique God-given perspective so that you can go forward. It says wars are won with wise counsel, right? So you always want to receive whatever God is giving you through your family when He is wanting you to, receive it. So always keep your eyes open, always keep your ears open, and be looking for God's wisdom and love and leadership through any kind of thing. Just like God says, look at the ant, you sluggard, and study its ways. Well, if God says to study an ant and to look at the ways of an ant, you also need to have your eyes on your children and on your wife and be willing to learn whenever God is desiring for you to learn from somebody other than just your divine connection with Him through the Holy Spirit. Number 9, servant leadership. Don't expect to receive what you do not give. That's exactly what Yeshua was talking about when He says, people raise up leaders that become tyrants, but you need to be a servant leadership. You need to wash the feet of your disciples. You need to come down. Jesus came as a servant. He didn't come as the king on His first arrival here. He came as a servant. He came to serve His creation. What a blessing. God came down in the flesh for 33 years. 33 years came down as a servant. It says, Jesus, you would have walked right by him. He just looked like any common man. He didn't look fancy. He didn't look insanely handsome, chiseled features, perfect symmetrical facial features. No, he looked like a common man. He came, he rode in on a colt. He didn't have a pillow to lay his head on. He was wandering with his students and teaching the world, and was a carpenter. So this is the beauty of it. If you want to be a good leader, you need to be a servant first. And ultimately, when you learn to be a servant, you will then be a great leader when you become a great servant. It's just like me in the Army. I'm a PFC. I'm just at the bottom of the barrel. I'm learning, even though I know God has given me a drive and a desire to be a leader and to be a good one. But I love being a servant right now. There's times where my sergeant has so much going on that I'm glad I'm not a sergeant at this point in time. Let's say they took my rank off and threw sergeant on me today, I would not be able to do the job. So the beauty of it is love being a servant, and always make there an opportunity to serve. Always create opportunities. You have to be conscious to be a servant. And eventually you do that long enough and it'll just be so natural you won't even think about it. But you need to always put yourself in a position to be a servant first. And by doing that, you will be a leader. By doing that, you will lead. And who doesn't want to follow someone that's humble? So when you set the example, you will become the leader by being the most humble, right? Moses, the meekest man to ever live, the meekest mortal, I'll say, because Yeshua is by far the meekest. God is the most humble, right? So, but Moses, the meekest man mortal to ever live. And what did he do? He led the Israelites. How awesome. You want to be a Moses in your household. You want to be a Moses in your marriage. So always seek to serve. Always seek to sacrifice. Always seek to lower yourself and to alleviate some of the stress and some of the burden of your wife's cross or daily tasks or duties, and bring them upon you, and love in your humility. And humility is love, and love is humility. So you can't have one without the other. They're both one and the same because they both are from our Father in heaven. So yeah, servant leadership, that's been a huge thing for me in the military, and I learned it while I was in the military, and I know that it was something that the Lord wanted me to implement into my life for the rest of my life. And finally, number 10, receiving correction as you would hope your spouse would receive it. Lead by example. This also ties into the previous point, and also brings it full circle into the title of this video. You need to receive correction well. Just as you would hope your wife would receive correction, just as when you're delivering a rebuke or a correction or a gentle, alter of the direction going on, you should act the way that you hope she will when you receive a rebuke or a correction, when you're stepping out of line, when you're not doing things properly, when you have crossed your spouse, when you have offended her. You need to receive correction, and you need to humble yourself, and you need to sit there and let these things, work in you and change you, and listen and be quiet and just receive the correction because it's from God. So if you don't want to receive correction from your wife, then you're insulting the Lord. You're insulting God when she is correcting you in wisdom. When the Lord is correcting you because you don't have anybody above you physically around you to correct you, if you're not listening to the conscience God has given you, if you're not listening to the Holy Spirit, if you're not having to apologize and humble yourself before they have to correct you, then you better damn right sit there and take the correction if you've let it get to that point. You should only be getting humbled and corrected if you failed to correct and humble yourself amongst you and the Lord, and then publicly announce that and publicly humble yourself and apologize to whoever you might have offended, even if they don't realize it yet. But if you've created a healthy climate in your house where you are willing to be corrected and others are willing to be corrected, people won't have a problem saying something to you and saying, hey dad, you hurt me last night when you said that. I don't know if you knew it or not, but I just wanted to tell you because I love you and I want you to be a great dad. Wow, that would make me burst into tears. I would be crying and I would be apologizing. I'd ask my son and my daughter to forgive me right then and there, and I'd give them a hug and I'd cry on their shoulder, right? And it's like you create that climate. It's beautiful. It's beautiful because it's like, wow, like correction is a good thing. It's not taboo. I'm not going to get yelled at. You know, I grew up in a worldly household. My dad had rage. He didn't know how to contain it. He didn't know the Lord back then. He had a Marine father, 1950s. You can understand what that climate might have been like. But I never had that climate. I didn't feel like my dad didn't let there be an opportunity for anybody to tell him anything. But when you lead as a husband and you eventually lead as a father, you want to create a climate in the house where these things are sought after, because it's growth and it's love. And you want to create that environment where everybody feels okay saying the discomforting, uncomfortable thing. And that's a correction, whether it be sharp or gentle. So receive the correction as you would hope your spouse would receive it. Lead by example. Correction is love. If you do not correct, you don't if you don't correct, you don't love. And that's the beauty of this video and why I wanted to make this. And I went over some of these with my wife and asked her some things that she has felt on her end when these corrections have had to come about and these resolutions have ultimately healed. And it was awesome. It's awesome having her help, because she is my help. God gives us wives as help. He deemed every single creature in all of his creation not worthy to hold and bear the job that the rib taken from our side, later becoming a woman, has donned. And so I'm grateful to God for my wife, and I encourage all of you men out there to be servant leaders, servant husbands. Seek the wisdom of God first. Seek him, love him first. Keep Yeshua as your head. Submit to him, receive his correction, and you will be in line, and ultimately you will pass down the example. Your wife will be an example, and your wife will be an example to your children. So just be faithful, steadfast in your relationship with God, and love your wife. Love your wife through humility and through sacrifice, and also through leadership. Be a man, be a leader, step into your role, and be the head as God said you are. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got something from these 10 tips that I've concocted in my early husbandry, but really in 2 to 3 years of courtship, and ultimately just in the full wisdom that God has given me through my walk with him over the last 5 years. So I thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you already knew all these things, I hope that they help confirm or deepen your understanding of them. And I thank you for spending your time with me. Hopefully, God willing, we'll see you in the next video. But until then, shalom everybody, and shalom Rav, shalom abundantly. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you. Bye.